Hello, my name is Leonardo and today I'm here to explain what is Scrum and how Scrum works. So, first of all, Scrum is not a methodology. Scrum is a framework. It's a framework that helps us out to build, deliver and sustain complex solutions. Scrum is based on empiricism, but what does it mean? So, empiricism asserts that knowledge comes from experience. In other words, we have to put things in place, learn with that, and then make decisions based on facts or what we've seen. In Scrum, empiricism has three pillars, which is inspection, adoption, and transparency. So, as I said, we put things in place, but we should always keep inspecting it, learn with that, adapting our plan towards our goal. And we should have transparency. What does it mean? Everyone should have the same common understanding. Everyone should be on the same page so that we can avoid misunderstandings. Scrum is based on roles, rules, events, and artifacts. And we're gonna see them now. The first role that we have in Scrum, it's called Product Owner. The product owner is solely responsible for maximizing a product value. The product owner will work with the stakeholders to create the product vision, and he will be responsible to collaborate as much as possible with the stakeholders to keep the value of the product or to maximize the value that we are producing, the value of the product. He will also be responsible for the first artifact, which is called product backlog. The product backlog is the main source of work for Scrum. We're going to talk about Scrum team very soon. But the product owner will be responsible to manage this artifact called product backlog. He can have help of stakeholders, teams and other people, but he has to have the final decision based on prioritization, and the organizations have to respect that. So PO will work to maximize the value that we're going to produce in Scrum. And even though we may have more teams working, which we're going to see later on, Scrum teams working in a product, we should have only one product owner. Another role that we have in Scrum, it's called Dev Team. Dev Team is a group of developers that will turn product backlog items into working software. They should be cross-functional and self-organized. What does this mean? Cross-functional means that they have to have all the competence to produce working software within the development team. Self-organized means that they have to decide on their own how to best approach the work they're doing to make their own decisions within their boundaries. And finally, the last role, we're going to have the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is a servant leader that will help individuals, teams, and organizations to understand and adopt Scrum properly. He won't be managing people at all. He will manage Scrum. As I said, he's a servant leader. He will be working at removing impediments that are blocking us or slowing us down to adopt and get benefits out of Scrum. And those three roles, Scrum Master, Development Team, and Product Owner, will form what we call a Scrum team. I already mentioned earlier on. So far we have the Product Backlog and the Scrum teams, roles, and the first artifact. Then we have the heart of Scrum, which is called Sprint. It's an event. A sprint is a time box of 4 weeks or shorter where all the events happen within those boundaries. By the end of the sprint, we should have working software or potential releasable software produced by the Scrum team. I mentioned that it's a 4-week max or can be even shorter, but the time box should be respected. What is the time boxed? It's a maximum time, and this is the only one that it's fixed. It shouldn't be shorter. So once we define that's a 3-week or 4-week or a 2-week, the time box will expire at the end of that period. So we have another event within this frame, which is called the sprint planning. So the sprint planning is 8 hours or shorter for a 1-month sprint, and it's the moment that the Scrum team gets together here, and they're gonna work on what we intend to achieve within this sprint. This means the sprint goal. So they're gonna create a sprint goal in the first part of the meeting, which means what we want to achieve, why we are running this up to 4 weeks, what underpins this. And also they're gonna create their sprint backlog, or the forecast, the plan, how they intend to achieve the sprint goal. The sprint backlog will be a subset of the product backlog plan plus the plan to how they forecast to achieve the sprint goal. The sprint backlog is owned by the dev team. They own it. And this backlog, the sprint backlog, will change or can change throughout the sprint as the team figures out and discovers more things emerged. But we have to keep an eye on inspecting, adapting, and raising transparency of what happens here. The sprint goal shouldn't change. If the sprint goal has to change or is not valid anymore, the only person that can cancel the sprint then is the product owner. And no one else can change the sprint goal or cancel the sprint goal, just the product owner. But be careful, because this can be very impacting for everyone involved in this development. So I already mentioned that this is owned by the dev team. So then the team starts working in this plan towards the goal to produce potential releasable software. Every day the team will get together. When I mean team, the development team, in this case is the development team, will get together in an event called Daily Scrum. It's time boxed by 50 minutes. So in other words, max of 50 minutes, they're gonna get together and they're gonna inspect their plan towards their goal, and they may adapt it if necessary. And at this moment, they are also raising transparency among the development team members. Throughout the sprint, we also have an implied event called Product Backlog Refinement, where the product owner and the dev team get together and they don't spend more than 10% of the whole sprint time to understand the most valuable items on the product backlog for further sprints. Not within Starbucks. They are trying to understand the most valuable items where they're gonna work on the next sprint. And then, towards the end of this time box, we have the sprint review, which would be 4 hours or shorter for a 1-month sprint. This is the moment where the Scrum team gets together, and the PO will also invite stakeholders to collaborate during this meeting, during this event, and they're going to inspect the increment. What is the increment? The increment is the working software that the team turned product backlog items in working software. And this is another artifact in Scrum. We also have an implied artifact called the definition of done, which is quality standards that the PO and the dev team agree upon, and everyone, this is to raise transparency, so everyone knows what done means. So the Scrum team will collaborate with stakeholders, and be careful to not have this as just demo. We're going to collaborate to get feedback from stakeholders, inspect and possible use of the software for our users, update the release plan, and so on. And based on the outcome of this, we are gonna adapt our product backlog for further sprints. And this should be happening at the end of the, or as outcome of the sprint review. And finally, we have our sprint retrospective, is where the Scrum team gets together and reflects upon process, people, tools, in other words, for continuous improvement. And the outcome of this meeting is actionable items or experiments that the team agreed to put in place to continuously improve our process. And this will also be an input for the next in-sprint planning. At the end of this is the end of the time box of the sprint. The sprint ends when the time box expires. And regardless of what happens, this is a fixed time box. Another sprint will start as soon as the previous sprint finishes, the time box expires. So this here will have iteratively. So whenever this time box expires, another sprint starts. So it's gonna happen iteratively. So, and we should keep the same pace and cadence. So basically, those are the rules, roles, events, and artifacts in Scrum. I hope that you found this useful, and see you soon. Bye bye.